I will call this meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Michelle, you have something you want to share with the group?
Yeah, I would just like to say that the school committee did offer, and the district offer our sympathies to Eric Larravee's family after his passing, and we did receive a nice little note from them, just acknowledging that we did offer our sympathies to them with a purchase of some flowers for the funeral, and thank you for your kind expression of sympathy, and our best wishes go out to the family of Eric Larravee, and they are certainly in my thoughts and my prayers, and I know all of us.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, comments and statements from the public. Okay, and I just for the record, I'd like to say, if those at home can't see, but we have a good crowd here tonight. This is our first official superintendent's presentation of the proposed budget, and I wanted everyone here to hear it from the people who are here every day and the people who make up these budgets and do the work, and not just hear numbers out of my mouth or the superintendent's mouth or our business managers or any of us. So I wanted you people to see and hear and feel the passion that the staff, the administration of this district has. So that's we appreciate you guys coming. All right, informational agenda. Dr. Dargan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of updates this evening. First and foremost, I want to give you some staffing updates. We have recently recalled Patty Summers. Patty was laid off last June. Patty had been a Title I tutor, and because of the reorganization in Title I, she lost her position. We have recently recalled her to a para position here at the high school. Also, we received 2 resignations, teacher resignations. It is with sadness as well as congratulations, I share with you that in June of 2015, we will have Marty Delpat, a math teacher at the middle school, retiring, as well as Carol Doobie, our art teacher over at the elementary school. So again, it's a year from June, but they have announced their retirement. Also, we have just recently filled the SPED clerk position, and that position went to Alexandra Moniz. Alex had been subbing as the special education secretary, so she has picked up a lot of special education knowledge and done a really great job, and so we're happy that she's continuing to stay with us in the special ed department. Also pleased to share with you that the high school has submitted the MIMSI grant. That's the Mass Math and Science Initiative grant. We did submit that grant last year, but unfortunately, due to state funding, our district was not picked up in that grant. We were able, thanks to the Education Foundation, to be able to send several teachers for AP and pre-AP training. However, we have submitted the grant again. Things look very promising that our grant will be received this year pending funding. And the purpose of that grant is to increase the number of students taking and receiving qualifying scores in AP in math, science, and English. We also have finally received officially the NEASC accreditation letter. I believe you have that in front of you, and Mrs. Tutelo has already posted it on the high school website. But we are very, very pleased and proud. And congratulations to Mrs. Tutelo, Mrs. Antonelli, and the high school staff on their continued accreditation. Just as a side, also, we're very pleased to congratulate and thank the Westport Middle School. They, over the holidays, we raised $1,200 that they were able to donate to the Harrington family. That is one of our teachers whose son is very, very ill with cancer. The students sold, and then they wore Ninja Man shirts, in his honor. So kudos to all of our kids for doing that. Just this week, we received notification that the 2014 Statement of Interest process has begun. The applications will open on January 10th. If the district is interested in submitting an application for an accelerated repair, that would be for windows, roofs, and boilers, we would need to have our application in by February 14th. The application for the core program, which is primarily for projects beyond the scope of the accelerated repairs, that could be extensive repairs, renovations, additions and renovations, or a new school construction, and those applications will be closing on April 11th. Also, on January 15th, that's 1 week from tonight, the high school is hosting for a dinner and a presentation for families of grade 8 students. That will begin at 4:30, and it will conclude just in time for the basketball game, which the kids have been invited to stay at. So again, there's a really nice brochure that has gone home with the kids. This mirrors the breakfast meeting that occurred in December. However, we welcome any families of grade 8 students to RSVP to the high school for the dinner and the presentation next Wednesday. And then finally, to share with you, on Friday, February 7th, the Westport Music Boosters will be hosting another fundraiser. This time they're featuring the East Coast Premier Journey Tribute Band. Their concert is called Scarab, and tickets are on sale now for $10. You can purchase your tickets at the middle school, or they'll be available on the door, at the door that evening. So we hope that you'll come out and support the Music Boosters as well. So that's my presentation this evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
All right, next we have our student representative, Rachel. Good evening.
Guys, so we do have some great things happening at Westport High School right now. As we just heard, on December 17th, the letter came in from NEASC saying that we are continued accreditation with NEASC, and the letter also stated how the NEASC committee was impressed with the many programs and services Westport High School has, and I think that's great because the teachers here really do a great job, so does all the staff, and a lot of teachers and staff put a lot of hard work into that, so I think that's great. December 20th, we had our annual pep rally. It was great. We had Spirit Week from December 16th to December 20th. We had a great participation numbers. It's a fun way for everyone to come together. All the students have a lot of fun dressing up, from Twin Day to Sports Day to Decades Day, and then last on Friday, we have our class Spirit Days where everyone dresses up in all their Wildcat gear. So it's just a fun way for everyone to come together and be united as a school. Pep rally included tug of war, pie eating contests, and a lot of sports events, which was a great way to kick off vacation. Penny War was something that we've done in the past, but we haven't done for a few years. So we started that, and the goal is to get as many pennies in a jar as you can, and it raises money. Seniors have won. We will be doing an official count on Friday where we're going to go to the bank and have the coin counter count it, but it looks like seniors have won, and the seniors will get their money, and then the 3 other jars of coins is going to go to the Student Council Fund. So surprisingly, a lot of kids donated spare change, so it looks like we're going to do that again next year. We will be having our 2nd annual Winter Ball on February 14th. It was voted by the students what day we wanted to have it on, so it was a great way to let the students take something into their own hands and vote on what they really wanted. So that's something that was great for students to participate in choosing what day we're going to have it. It's going to be at White's of Westport, and it's going to be a fundraiser for all the classes. At our last Winter Ball last year, only 120 people came, so this year we're going to try to promote it more, get more people to come. Basketball, boys are 3 wins, 3 losses, while girls are 2 wins and 3 losses. This year on the girls team, there are a lot of new players, so they're in kind of an adjustment phase, but they're doing great. Business Club, DECA, which stands for Distributive Education Club of America, Lyle and Nick Rosa piqued interest in it, so they brought it to the school, and we started our first club at Westport High School for business. Mr. K. Clark is the advisor, and it just lets kids study all aspects of business, see if they're interested in it, if they want to do that when they get out of school. And tomorrow, the business club is actually going to be going to Falmouth to participate in a conference where they take a real-world business scenario and they compete against other schools' business clubs. And besides doing these real-world scenarios, they plan fundraisers for the school and treat the school as a business, raising money for the school. And clubs like this help kids get involved with the school who wouldn't otherwise be in clubs, so it's a great way to get more kids involved in the school and see if business is something they really like to do. And movie night with Santa is the last thing I'm going to talk about. We had it on December 13th, and we did have a good number of technical problems, but it was our first movie night with Santa. So next year, if we do it again, we know what we need to correct, and it didn't go that bad. All the kids had a lot of fun. It was just a few technical problems, but we know what to do for next year if we're going to do it again. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Always
you.
well. Questions for Rachel? Okay. Thank you. And as we sit here listening to Rachel, you know, I'm gazing back at the room and I see the principal and the vice principal with just grins on their faces from ear to ear, and you know, that's how they are. That's what our staff's about. Just quickly, just as a reminder, Rachel mentioned the NESAC letter, and I have a copy here in my hand, and I don't want to embarrass people, but just some of the things that they hit on: the effective leadership of the principals and assistant principal, the extraordinary efforts of the faculty and administration to provide quality programs with limited budgetary support. You know, if anyone hasn't had a chance to actually see the whole report, I don't know if this is going to be posted online or
It's on the high school
certainly,
website already.
certainly take a look at that. Something worth reading. Okay. All right, action agenda, approval of a $1,500 school scholarship from Mid-City Scrap for a Westport High School senior.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say thank you again for that.
Absolutely. Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, FY15 budget discussion. That's why you guys are all here, so. Dr. Dargan?
The full team, the full house is here this evening. Thank you. Just a little reminder why we're here this evening. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 37, the school committee in each city and town shall review and approve the budget for public education in the town. The superintendent develops a timeline and recommends a preliminary draft to the school committee for review. That's what you'll see here this evening, is a preliminary draft recommendation. The school committee then works to ensure that necessary funds are appropriated for the district and that a balance is maintained between the needs and resources in the distribution of available monies. After the school committee reviews the budget, it is then submitted to the finance committee and to town officials. Tonight you'll see through our presentation that it was a team effort. To my left is sitting our part-time business manager, Mr. Mark Dupuy. In the back of the room is Mrs. Melissa Souza. She's the nuts and bolts that really helps us crunch the numbers and pull this all together. And also you'll see our administrative team, who clearly, through work with their school advisory councils, their faculty, and their hard work together, have had an active involvement in this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Dargan, and I'd like to thank everyone who's really worked very hard on preparing this budget. I've only been here a short time, but it's been a pleasure to work with the administrative team and Dr. Dargan in pulling this together. As was said a minute ago, I would also like to compliment Melissa Souza for her hard work and dedication. She's a tremendous asset to the district, so thank you very much, Melissa. What we're going to do is run through a number of slides here, shifting between myself and Dr. Dargan. We'll give an overview of the budget, where it stands currently, As was stated earlier, this is a draft budget or a preliminary budget, so that we're not asking for a vote or anything this evening. But we'll run through those slides, give you a flavor for where we are. You'll also, at the end of the presentation or further on in the presentation, hear from the principals about a variety of unmet needs that are not included in the base budget, but we feel are very important, very warranted, and wanted to bring those forward so that you, as well as the community, could hear those needs. So we'll sort of move this along, and we'll follow the slideshow or the PowerPoint that's being shown on the wall.
So just a reminder again of why we're all here, not just because of regulation, but the vision statement of the Westport Community Schools is that we'll strive to be a model district that provides opportunities for all students to think critically and communicate effectively in order to achieve their highest potential. Our graduates will possess the skills required to become responsible and contributing citizens in a rapidly changing world. And then the mission, how are we going to get there? We want to inspire, prepare, and challenge our youth through a rigorous, differentiated, and relevant curriculum that extends beyond the classroom to include experiences in the community and that nurtures the academic, artistic, physical, and social potential of every student. We strive not to be a good school district. We want to be an excellent school district.
The budget you'll see that we'll go through now, we've provided a budget that we feel maintains the level of services that are currently existing in the district. It maintains the staffing levels that are currently in place. There are some adjustments with regards to certain accounts such as library and media and testing, which were reallocated to the schools, but those were just the shifts in existing funds. Just to be clear, there is no cost of living increases built into this budget, but there are steps and lane changes, which are the contractual obligation of the school committee and the community, and those have been built into the budget. We'll run through some slides now, and certainly if there's any questions as we go along, feel free to stop me or Dr. Dargan. The first slide is just a historical recap of the approved budgets dating back to FY10 and through the proposed budget of FY15. You can see the percent increases over those years ranged from a low of a 0.5% increase in FY13 to a high of 4.6% increase this past year, or this current year, FY14. The proposed or preliminary budget you're seeing tonight represents a 3% increase. The next slide is just a graphical depiction of the numbers you saw in the previous slide, and it again shows the past 4 or 5 years budgets and the percent increase that those budgets increased. The next,
Go ahead.
is this yours? Or the next slide is a history, again a 5 or 6 year history of the student enrollment. And as you can see, the enrollment has decreased over the past few years to a projected level in FY15 of 1,607 students pre-K to 12. One of the questions that I've heard in my experience is, with the enrollment going down, why is the budget going up? And we'll try to explain that as we go along.
So this is just an analysis of our current staffing and a historical perspective on the last couple of years. And while we look at, we have increased by about 7 full-time equivalent staff members. That doesn't mean we brought 7 full-time additional staff on board. Some of the things that we did this year is we made music at the high school full-time. We took a 1 full-time person who was our creative arts teacher this year out on maternity leave, and we hired a part-time music, a part-time physical education, a part-time art teacher. We also hired an additional kindergarten teacher this year to decrease class size, as well as a 4th grade teacher. So those were all increases in staffing that were generated by needs-based. In looking at the administrators, ultimately, we took our athletic director, who was a stipend position last year. He worked during the day as a paraprofessional, and we made him a full-time athletic director this year, as well as we added additional responsibilities to a guidance counselor who had already, the position was in the budget, but that position then became a supervisory position, a director of guidance position. So that's where the increase went, and some of it was just a shift of duties and responsibilities. Again, this just shows what the total enrollment has been over the last several years, and then what the staffing, total staffing, full-time equivalent has been. Now we're looking at where we are today. In our FY14 school committee approved budget, we were looking at $15,875,785. Our preliminary budget, and again, that's just keeping things at level service for staffing, level funded for everything other than staffing, is in order to keep things exactly as they are, we would need to have a budget of $16,356,543, or an increase of 3% of about $480,758. So in looking at that, of that $480,750,000, just salaries and wages, those are contractual obligations, steps and lanes, that totals $307,360. Other expenses then encompass some additional curriculum that perhaps had been used with end of the year monies 2 years ago in order to keep those instructional materials, as well as anticipating we have to go out to bid this year. Our bus transportation contract is up, so $173,398 is anticipated needed for other additional expenses.
The next slide you see is just a breakdown of 4-year history of the budget, FY12 and FY13, what was expended in those years in these various categories. The FY14 budget is what the budget is currently as it stands in place, and the proposed FY15 budget, which, as Dr. Dargan just mentioned, is the $16,356,000 budget. And that's just a breakdown of that budget and a prior 3-year history. The next slide is a breakdown of the proposed budget or the preliminary budget in comparing salaries versus expenses, which shows that 82% of the budget is for salaries as compared to 18% of the budget for expenses. And this, quite honestly, is in line with the state average. It's generally around 80-20 breakdown, so there's nothing out of the ordinary in this budget with regards to that breakdown. The next slide shows the proposed or preliminary budget, again, of a 3% increase of $16,356,000 and some change, as compared to the proposed budget of the selectmen and town manager, which represents $16,026,129, excuse me, or a 0.95% increase. The gap, if you will, between the preliminary superintendent's budget and the town selectmen, town manager budget is $330,414 as it currently exists.
Okay, so again, why do we need this money? Well, we looked a little bit at our enrollment before, and while we have seen, and again, it's historical, it's across the Commonwealth, it's across the country, that enrollments are decreasing. There are less babies being born, there are less kids coming to our school. However, what is increasing is the number of students that are on IEPs or individual education plans, the number of students who are in special education who may require additional supports. Sometimes those supports are academic, and sometimes those supports are for other areas such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, etc. So it's not as easy to say, well, we'll just add one more special education teacher. Sometimes it's other specialists that we need to add to our staffing in order to meet the needs of our students. So you can see this current school year, we have 273 students of our total 1,628 students who are requiring additional support and services. The next slide basically also shows a trend that's increasing, and that is the number of students who are currently below poverty, as defined by the federal government. And the number has increased just over the last 4 years from 20% to 27% of our youngsters. Now, just as a sidebar, the Title I formula is based on not only your total October 1 enrollment, but the number of students that you have on free and reduced lunch. And that says that children are coming to school, not all of them, but historically, traditionally, kids who are coming from homes in poverty may need more help and assistance in the classroom. They at times are more at risk, and so again, more interventions, more services need to be provided for them. So this number has increased over the last 4 years.
The next slide shows the District of Westport as compared to the surrounding districts on a per pupil cost basis. This information was obtained from the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's based on FY12 figures. In looking over this today and in the past few days, hindsight's 20/20, and this should have probably been put in some type of alphabetical order. There's no reason why the particular order is the way it is. Westport, as you can see, based on FY12 data, has a per pupil cost of $11,718 per student as compared to the state average, which is $13,636. In this listing of communities, Westport is 5th out of the 11th from the starting as the lowest to the highest. So again, it just provides some information. It shows that nothing is really out of line, and the cost on a per pupil basis is basically similar to your surrounding communities.
The next slide is nothing new to us who sit at the table here a couple of times a month together. However, these are new initiatives over the last couple of years, demands that have been placed on school districts, things that have been added to our list of things to do, and that are primarily coming unfunded. There have been occasionally a grant here or there to help offset, but it definitely doesn't completely fund. So we know in 2011 we had the new Common Core state standards for English language arts and for math. That was a shift in our curriculum, and an expense came with that. In order to meet the needs of our students, we needed to look at new curriculum, new textbook materials. The educator evaluation has been a positive change, looking at now a two-way mutual partnership for supervision and evaluation. However, it's much more time inclusive, which means some of the things that our administrators had done before, such as perhaps cafeteria duty, now is taking up more of their time, that they don't have time to do some of those other tasks. We know that PARC, the Partnership for Assessing the Readiness of College and Career, has come. Westport has 4 grades that will be part of the pilot this spring. Again, that's another unfunded mandate. Another thing, as a result of the Department of Justice, we need to look at making sure that not only the teacher who has the English language learner in their classroom, but that all teachers now, all 4 teachers, have had training on how to instruct children who come to our schools with little or limited English. We also have the Mass Core. We've done a nice job already implementing and making sure that we're ready for 2016 when our youngsters are required to fulfill that mandate. But one of the examples there was our students in the past might have only had to take 3 years of math, and now as part of Mass 4 years of math are going to be required. We also now have new assessments in the area of English language arts. That's our reader and our access. And just as an example, we're getting ready this month in early February to administer those assessments. And at the younger grades, particularly at the kindergarten, that's a one-on-one assessment. So it's not just we can go in, we can administer it to 10, 12, 15 youngsters. It has to be administered individually. So again, there is taking time and staffing. We also next year will have to implement the Massachusetts Kindergarten Entry Assessment. That assessment will take anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes per student to assess them, to see where their skills are in order to ensure that by the end of 3rd grade, all children are at or above proficient on MCAS. We know that the Board of Education this spring will approve the next generation science standards. That's another core curriculum in the area of science we will have to follow. So again, we'll be looking at our curriculum alignment, and we may need to look at additional text or materials and supply purchases there. And then nothing again new is the district determined measures. By June, we will have to identify for the state, for the Department of Ed, 2 measures of assessment per teacher as per the educator evaluation regulation as well. So this is an awful lot that has come over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. And as I said, they are mandates from the Department of Ed and primarily are coming unfunded to us.
What we're showing here is the class size from grades K through 8. The current year is on the left and the projected year is on the right. This does not reflect any staffing increases. It reflects some adjustment in section, but you'll hear from the principals momentarily about some staffing needs. Overall, the class size is very favorable. There are a couple, one grade in particular, the 7th grade this year is high, and that projects to a high 8th grade class next year. But this is just, again, to show you what the class size is. The high school is not listed here due to the structure of the high school and the schedule of the high school, but I know you'll hear more about that momentarily. The district receives a number of grants which are listed on this slide. The total grants for FY14 are total $843,906. Many of these grants, in fact, most of these grants are allocation grants, and they're earmarked for particular expenses, such as the top 3 are all directly for special education. The grant history for not only Westport but all communities is that year after year the grants seem to decrease. And just to let you know that for FY13 the total of the grants was $902,000 as compared to $843,000 this current year. We're making an assumption that the grants will be basically the same for next year with some of the exceptions. One in particular that we know of is the last grant listed is the Race to the Top, which is going to run out, so that grant will not be available next year, or if it is, only for the first quarter of the year. So we're making an assumption that as far as the large grants, particularly the SPED, the top one, the SPED 94-142 and the Title I grant, which is the 4th one down, will come in basically at the same levels they are this year, because these grants are very important to support the services that are provided. Similar to grants, there are a number of revolving accounts that the district has access to, and the main ones are listed here on the left, and the use of those monies are listed on the right, and this has been used year after year for those particular costs, whether it be utility costs or the preschool program or transportation, et cetera. So again, I just want to lay out that in addition to the budget, there are these grants that are within the purview as well as the revolving accounts.
So at this time now, we'd like to invite one at a time the principals to come up and explain to you a little bit about the budget process, as well as the additional needs requests that they've put together. We're going to start with Mr. Simonello from the Macomber School.
Good evening, Alec.
Okay. The above and beyond items that are in need at the Macomber School, at the top of my list is a kindergarten teacher. Right now, if we continue with the 5 sections of kindergarten that we have, next year's students will be one of 22 students. If we can expand that to 6 kindergarten teachers, that'll drop that number down to 18. The smaller class size, the smaller teacher-to-student ratio, that gives us better identification of any needs, better tier instructions. It's a lot easier for the teachers to take those students from non-readers. They all come to us, absolutely non-readers. I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them non-readers, and to bring them to, at the end of kindergarten, to a level E in the Fonda-Pinnell range is a very difficult task. Having only 18 students in your classroom, that's going to make that task a lot easier. The Macomber School was given a lot of accolades through the NEAYC accreditation. Spoke about the good work going on at the school there. To help lower that, it will really give those kids an excellent beginning into the school system, which then will give them a great start. That smaller group of kids going to 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade will give them the start that they really, really need. The next item on that list are substitutes for common planning. This will help the teachers really to work as a unit. None of those teachers at the Macomber School work, none of them are an island unto themselves. They really work planning together, working together. This will give them the needed time, the additional time to work on their DDMs, to work on their units of study, to look at the data that we're getting on these kids, and to formulate things that we really need to do for these children. That's what the 2 additional days of grade level meeting would do for them. The instructional software for the MKEA, that's the new kindergarten assessment program. That is being mandated to us from the state. And it is a computer program that they would input information into, and unfortunately that would cost us money. It's mandated, we have to do it next year. And the $2,600 would cover the cost of that program. On a side note, I will be attending a conference on Friday that'll give me a lot more information about this program. So, the $6,100 for the textbook reading series, that's if we adopt a new reading series. We're in the process of piloting 2 series right now. And if we go forward with that series, we're going to need the money to purchase the items that the teachers are going to need. Right now, the teachers do an excellent job. I give them a lot of credit for bringing the children from non-readers. And in the past, they brought the kids up to level C, and now the expectation is beyond level E, and that takes new program, new books, new material for them to read, and that's where that would come from. The last item is instructional supplies for our phys ed and our music program. As Dr. Dargan had spoken about, this is the first year that they really have had this program in, with a full-time teacher there and a full-time a PE teacher and music teacher. I know they've had the art program in the past, and Jane Dufall did a phenomenal job with covering all 3 in the past. We now have a new program, and I really want to make this program stellar. Right now, they have limited materials. They're begging, they're borrowing from different areas. If you notice on our newsletter that went home today, the phys ed teacher asked for a parachute. There isn't one. There's things that he is doing there that he just needs more materials. So that's a shot to make that program, the best that it can be.
We don't have any preliminary numbers for next year's kindergarten class.
It's tough because I don't know how many of these kids are out there in private daycares. That's why the list on the list in your slides, I want to say, was 78 to 110. I've seen as high as 120 in a very old census, which is 5 years old. So right now, I really don't have any solid numbers for you. We won't really know until we start kindergarten registration, February, March sometime.
Okay. Any questions, Val? Mike?
Thank you for going first in your presentation, Mr.
Somebody had to pull
Simonello.
the short straw.
I did notice it was out of order, so you must have drawn the short straw. My question also was about enrollment,
Yes.
where you've listed a additional kindergarten teacher.
Yep.
That's based in part on those students that have been participating in pre-K,
Yes.
plus the unknown.
Yes.
So what would the new teacher do to class size in kindergarten?
It would bring it from, if it's 110 students, it would bring it from 22 students per class to 18 students a class. And if you've been in a kindergarten class and, the teachers are extremely talented, it's like herding cats. They have a lot of energy. They're going everywhere. They've never been in a school before. I give a lot of credit to kindergarten teachers. They can't bring those kids in. The 4 extra kids, and a lot of people might be sitting there saying, well, it's only 4 kids. What's the, it is a huge deal to deal with 22 kids and deal with 18. It's like a breath of fresh air. What you can do with those kids and where you can take them in a month's time, 2 months' time, in the 9 months will be absolutely amazing if you only are dealing with 18 students and not 22. You can identify the needs like I spoke about. You can get a lot better tiered instruction. It is well worth it because it will give them the foundation that they need to go on in the school system.
And just to follow up, if I could, with that in mind, but we're also looking at advancing the pilot reading program
Yes.
further at the K level.
K level, yes.
And so is there a specialist that's going to be accompanying that textbook? We already have the reading specialist?
Yes, we have 1.5 reading specialists at that school. They're not 100% reading specialists. They also deal with mathematics as well. But they are there and they're doing a fine job. I wouldn't want to add any more there. I think they can take care of the load that's there, the need.
So they support the classroom?
They would support the classroom.
On a rotating?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's it? Okay.
So just for those in the audience or for those at home, the items that Mr. Simonello spoke about totaled about $62,767. Now we're going to ask Mrs. Staskowitz, who is the acting principal at the time from the Westport Elementary School, to come up and talk about what her additional needs are.
Good evening.
Good evening. To follow up on Mr. Simonello, he did draw the short straw, but there is a method to what we're doing here. And it's really to start out with the youngest and watch and see what happens as our needs are met as we move along from the very smallest and on to the elementary school. So what does Westport Elementary need to be a high-quality school, to be an excellent school? What we really need is to regain what we've lost over the last couple of years. If you look at the list, we did try to prioritize. Our highest priority is to reinstate a first-grade inclusion teacher. First grade inclusion teacher is a teacher that is certified in special education. Currently, one of the first grade teachers who holds a special educator license, but is also a regular classroom teacher with 20 students of her own, is the first grade special ed teacher. What happens with that is, in addition to her teaching her 20 students that she has, any child that is identified with special needs, which in first grade often happens as they become more acclimated to the curriculum and their skills become more refined, that is when we really find students who really do require more specialized education. However, right now, because of that, she either has to take those students into her classroom, moving them from the classroom that they're in once they're identified, or she has to then somehow juggle her schedule so that she is able to go to another classroom and work with her students. We take the rest of those children and we kind of split them up among the other 5. As you can see, it really isn't the best. It is not, certainly is not high quality, and truly the teacher is having to not only modify her curriculum to be able to meet the needs of the special ed students, she also has a classroom of 20 students that she needs to continue to plan for. So that is our highest priority. Another priority that we have is right now we only have one certified math specialist to service a population of 513 students. I don't really need to explain how this does not even come close to meeting the needs of the students who require support or reteaching in math. The classroom teachers also require support, and they don't have that. With one math specialist to be able to service 26 rooms, we can see that that's very, very difficult. Currently, we also have one adjustment counselor. An adjustment counselor at the elementary school meets the social and emotional needs of 513 students, because every one of our students gets some type of service from our adjustment counselor. Not only does she work with small groups and individual students, she also works with the classroom. She actually goes in and does a classroom lesson at least once a month, if not and more if it is necessary, in the classroom in order to be able to support our social emotional curriculum. I do not need to explain or say to you how important it is for students who, to be ready to learn, they really have to be socially and emotionally adjusted. And as Dr. Dargan was saying before, as we know, we see our numbers of free and reduced lunching go up. We know what that means. What that means is that more and more students are coming from homes where, unfortunately, their economic and their social and their emotional needs are not being met. And so, therefore, they're not ready to learn. They come to school, and the last thing that they need on their plate is to be able to learn. So it really has become our responsibility to be able to help these children, to support these children, and to be able to help them be ready to learn so that they can meet the challenges of every school day. It's not necessarily what we want it to be, but in order for us to be a high-quality school, and in order for us to meet the needs of all students academically as well as socially, we really do need that additional adjustment counselor. And really, it is only really to regain what we lost, because maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we did have 2 full-time adjustment counselors. And unfortunately, because of budget constraints, that was something that was cut, and we never did reinstate it. Something new that we would like to look at is a literacy coach. A literacy coach supports teachers, specifically in grades 3 and 4. The role of a literacy coach is to help plan reading instruction, monitor data, and work with students who are a little bit below grade level. And it also helps to design curriculum so that it meets the needs of our advanced students. Currently, we use AIMSweb. AIMSweb is our data input and progress monitoring system. That's what we use. That's where the teachers take the scores, they put it in, they take the scores, they put them into AIMSweb, and we are able to track progress and growth of each of the students. But that is something that every teacher has to do in addition to all the other duties and responsibilities that they have as classroom teachers. A literacy coach would be able to take that data, look at that data, be able to manipulate that data, and help to collaborate and work with the classroom teachers to strengthen their reading programs. It would be such a benefit for us to be able to have someone like that could come in, a certified reading literacy coach that could come in and really work with the 3rd and 4th grade teachers And what would that do? That would take our current intervention staff and it would allow them to service the first and second grade students on a much more continual basis. That's where early literacy skills are needed to be developed. And if we were able to take our current reading intervention staff and really focus them on the lower grades, we would then begin to address those gaps that we see when we have 14 children in 4th grade on IEPs and 13 children in grade 3 on IEPs. Maybe we would be able to finally lessen those numbers if we were able to really give that such critical reading instruction. We would be able to give it down in first and second grade. The last priority that I want to speak about tonight is instructional supplies. Over the past 2 years, the teachers at West, though they were given $150 apiece in order to be able to purchase supplies for their classroom, things like classroom library books, bulletin board materials, posters, just all the different things that have to go into making that environment so welcoming, so nurturing in an elementary classroom. They have taken that $150 and turned it back into the school. They've done that so that we can continue to maintain programs, we can maintain personnel that they know are so important. And so how have they been able to do a lot of those instructional supplies? Well, parents, of course, as you know, many of you are elementary parents, you know the supplies that you send to school every September. But in addition to that, there's construction paper, there's different kinds of paints, there's posters, there's classroom library books, there's different types of centers that they need for science, for math. All of those materials are bought and paid for at their own expense. And they've done that for 2 years. What I'd like to see is to be able to give back $150 to each of the teachers in order to be able to say, thank you very much for all that you've done in the last 2 years and turning that money back. But on the other hand, it is our responsibility here as not only as a school district, but also myself as the acting principal to make sure that the teachers are recognized for the fact that they were able to do that, but they should have that money back to and given to them. The other additional things that we have on there are all very important. I don't want to minimize them. I just simply want to say that all of those, when you look at them, it's something that we're going to put together and be able to work together as a collaboration. It's something that is going to only enhance instruction. The playground monitors allow for teachers to have common planning time, which is not able to be done at the elementary school simply because of the size of the grades. None of the teachers are able to have any type of common meeting time throughout the day. The only time they do that is either at lunch, or most of them do it before and after school, and they do that simply because they're dedicated professionals. The smart boards for the specialists, they should have those. The classrooms all have the smart boards. The specialists should have the smart boards, and right now they don't. So, so basically, that's what we really need in order for us to really be a high-quality, excellent school. I feel very passionate about it, and I do feel that certainly that's what our kids deserve. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything in particular.
Okay, Chris, Mike.
Thank you for mentioning the term quality school, as I've used the term halls of excellence in the past. But we all recognize that the state reviews our performance and the progress we make, and we as a school committee have discussed the goal. In fact, we've implemented it at some levels of becoming level 1 district. And that starts with the individual school's performance, and what you're alluding to here is you want to become a level 1 school, correct?
Yes, I do.
In a level 1 district.
Correct.
And that by implementing your suggestions here, you're committing to our heading in that direction.
Absolutely.
So I have a few questions. So thank you for that commitment.
Okay.
And
You're
so
welcome.
I have a few questions on your list. I was interested to hear, you spoke of a couple of class grades having 13, 14 IEPs. Okay. And as much as that's a challenge for you, I did some quick math offline here. Our average IEP per class is 20. So what we're saying is, through the elementary school process is when we start to identify students with
Correct.
needs. So even though you have 13 or 14, our average throughout the system is 20. These type positions will help to address the needs earlier on. And so my question is, do these students eventually come off an IEP if their needs are addressed at an earlier stage?
No, that's an excellent question. First of all, 13 and 14 IEPs in 3rd and 4th grade right now are primarily the academic IEPs. Students who require speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, or any other type of behavioral therapy or anything like that, they are not really what we put into, we don't include them in an inclusion classroom, simply because they don't have academic goals and objectives. So many times those goals and objectives can be met by related service providers, such as the speech therapist, occupational therapist, the school psychologist. So truly, though we have 13 and 14, and those are the ones that I mentioned, those are primarily our students that have academic IEPs. If we really did want to put all of the IEPs together, it probably would come out to about 20 or 21. But eventually, to answer your question though, eventually students do come off of IEPs. What happens is that they are identified with a learning disability or some type of a special need that they need to have some type of specialized instruction. The goal, of course, is that we begin to close the gap, either by teaching them strategies, we teach them how to compensate for those disabilities, and eventually what happens is that they're able to then hopefully be assimilated into a regular classroom, maybe with some support, maybe with some modification, maybe they'll need some testing accommodations along the way, but primarily they can still access the regular curriculum and be able to access it at the same rate and in the same level as all of their peers.
Thank you for explaining that
You're
in
welcome.
a short time. Thank you.
Chris, thanks for, you did a great job, and everybody in here can hear it and feel it in your voice. That's more, I can't, sorry. I'll come back, go ahead. You know, I'm so glad everyone's here. I invite all of you one day to go to the elementary school. Just walk around the school, peek into the classrooms, and really get a sense why this stuff is needed. Again, it's not just numbers out of my mouth or anyone's mouth. I mean, you can feel it, I can feel it, I can hear it in Chris's voice. They're the professionals. They're the ones that know. They're the ones that feel it, work it, every day, have to deal with it. They know what they need. It isn't, these things, they're not just pulling these things out of a hat. And I invite you to go to the elementary school, walk into any of our schools and see I mean, you saw Rachel up here earlier. I mean, that's a prime example of the type of caliber students we have. And we want to give every student, every child in this town, in our schools, to be able to end up like, you know, somebody like Rachel.
Like Rachel, right.
But some kids, not all of them, need the support. Maybe average Johnny and Susie out there don't need these things, but we're here to educate everyone. It's the Westport Community Schools. We want to give everybody a chance. Some kids need more. You know, when we lose one, you know, some poor kid who just makes it by 16, quit. I mean, that's a tragedy. It's a life lost. I mean, we want to give every one of these kids, their families, the best opportunity. And that's really our job. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what people did for us, and we need to continue to do that. And it's, I don't know, does that make any sense? But thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And as Tony said, this really isn't about numbers, but it is a budget presentation. So in order to really become a high-quality school, the Westport Elementary School additional needs would cost $221,850. And now I'd like to invite Mrs. Carolyn Ponce, the principal of the Westport Middle School, to come up and talk about her additional needs requests.
Good evening.
Hi. I want to
start by saying that our goal at the middle school is to help our students meet with success in a rapidly changing educational world. I also want to state that I come up here asking for things. However, I do believe that the middle school already has so many wonderful things that are in place. We already do so many wonderful things, and I have the utmost confidence in the staff, the students, and the educational design that we have there. When you walk into the middle school, it is really a place that I believe you feel warmth and you feel welcome, and I'm proud to be there. However, our district vision and mission statements can be best fulfilled by putting back into place some of the things that we've lost in the past. One of the biggest things is a technical educational instructor, and the reasoning behind this is that we want to be competitive in the global market and also have our students be 21st century learners. One of the things that we did learn is last month our entire 8th grade went over to UMass Dartmouth and attended what was called an hour of code in this area, and then our 7th graders were able to attend it at our school 2 days later. They came back with such a natural affinity to want to learn this that this is something that we need to refine now and keep going. They truly enjoyed it and did gain some hands-on skills, and they were talking about it for days after. So by putting a technical education instructor in place, we would be able to continue this and to grow on those skills. It is something that we had in the past that they did find very beneficial. It's also part of the science frameworks, technology is, and it has to do a lot with putting things together and taking them apart. Although our science teachers do a wonderful job now of meeting those needs, it's not enough to compete in the educational society that we live in today. The second thing is a world language teacher. This is something that we have previously lost as well. It's part of the ELA Common Core Standards for Culture. And it would allow for our students to have enrichment in culture and in linguistics. We have called around to other middle schools and found that the other local middle schools are offering world languages. So this is an area that we need to really step up and do a little bit better in. And also would allow them to be better prepared to go to the high school, have a basis for world language, and then be able to compete out in society when they are ready to go out into the workforce. Also, bringing these two positions and blocks into the middle school would allow us to do two more things. It would allow our exploratory schedule to change, which, as you know, currently we have some of our students are attending 3 chorus classes a week, 2 band classes a week. This would provide them with 2 blocks of a more rounded education. They would be gaining skills that they can bring with them and carry into their future, as well as allowing them to also participate in what the elementary school has in place, which I'm backing up on Chris, which is called a WIN block, or What I Need block. What we would use these blocks, these extra blocks for, would also be for students who need intervention, whether it be for a higher education or remedial intervention. It would give us time to be able to do that and meet those needs a little bit better than we currently are. It would also give our teachers something that they have lost by eliminating these 2 positions, and they are common planning blocks. Currently, our teachers have no time to sit and discuss students that they share that, you know, one teacher may be having an issue or may be concerned somewhere and might want to discuss it with another teacher. What they're doing now is they're doing it before school, after school. This gives them a whole block to just discuss a way that they can meet these needs of these students and work together to do it. So putting these 2 very important positions in place would allow us to give them a more rounded education, as well as provide the students with intervention blocks and our teachers with time to connect with each other during the day. Another area of need for the middle school is student furniture. We have several desks that currently have sharp edges, and we have put in requests to have them repaired. However, maintenance is unable to do that. So, you know, we are looking at a risk for student injury. Our art tables are in very poor shape, and I went in today and just to move them around, they are shaky, and I do feel that this is an accident waiting to happen. If you go in and take a walk around the school, you will see that there's art displayed throughout the building, and our art teacher, Alicia McGuire, does a wonderful job with getting the school decorated. However, she is working in a classroom where the desks are at risk. They're very old, and it would definitely be a benefit to have them replaced. Along with that goes some of our 7th grade classrooms, especially in our band and health room. We do not have enough desks for the students, and we don't have any other classrooms to pull them out of. Some of our students are sitting in chairs on the side of the room and writing on tables or other areas that they can put books on. This is not optimal for learning. So it would be, a great benefit to them to be able to have more desks in the room so that they can be provided. These are the students that are also going to be in 8th grade next year. So it is a large class, and it is something that we really need to consider. Which brings me to my next thought. A part-time social studies and science teacher. This would be a .5 position for each. Currently, our 7th graders are in a science and social studies class of 29, 30, and 31 students without any help. This is an extremely large class size. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have the staffing to provide another section for these students to benefit in. They're doing wonderful. We spend a lot of time in these classrooms. However, it's not optimal for student learning. And of course, our goal is to make sure that they are successful learners. Science and social studies are growing areas in the academic world, and definitely we want to see our students get the best education that they can. It would allow for smaller class sizes, optimal performance, and focus on students' achievement in these areas. Another area where we're finding that we could use assistance in is by adding another guidance counselor. Over the years, we've had an increasing growth with students with emotional and social needs. And again, backing up on what Chris said, when you're having students with social and emotional needs that aren't being met, they don't do as well academically. So adding another guidance staff would allow them to be able to have more time to spend with students who are struggling and have more needs at home that we can meet. Currently, our guidance staff is struggling to meet the needs of all the students in conjunction with Massachusetts law. They really are straight out. We have added a transition room to enhance student learning. This is an academic room, but it also provides for social and emotional student needs, where they spend some time in there. Having another guidance counselor would allow us to get somebody in there to work with these students and really get them not only academically, but socially and emotionally. We talked about lunch monitors. One thing that we have implemented in the middle school this year is, I don't know if anybody has spent time in our cafeteria during lunch. It's a loud place. And although Kelly and I do our best to spend as much time as we can in there, oftentimes we're called away, so it's left to the campus supervisor. This year we were allowed to hire 2 lunch monitors that have come in for 2 hours a day. What they do is they circulate the room, make sure students are safe, make sure that they're in their seats and they're meeting their nutritional needs, and everybody's, not talking in a quiet voice, because that's very difficult to do in that room. However, everything is under control and student safety is at its best. So this is definitely something that I'd like to see implemented into the budget for next year. And again, I just want to reiterate that I do feel that the middle school is an absolute wonderful place to learn. I feel that our staff and our students do a wonderful job there, and I am very proud to be there.
Okay.
Questions?
Michelle?
I have 2 questions. The grade 8 teacher, science, social studies, when we had the presentation on the class sizes, it was clear that our grade 7 is one of those classes that is just a larger class.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what's causing this larger size? So my question, I guess, is with a request like that, it would minimize the impact that 7th grade is currently having for next year, but then we would go back to the smaller groups that look to be coming up. Is that correct? Or is there another purpose behind your request for that?
No, it's to accommodate our current 7th grade, which will be going to 8th grade. And if you have a 7th grader, I'm sure they've spoken about the large class sizes that we have. It would be to accommodate them for next year. However, our 5th and 6th grade do have 133 and 132 currently. So they are larger classes as well. So obviously,
And there are classes coming up. My son's is 140-something, so there are some coming up not as big as the 7th grade, but I was just curious if that was what that was really to do, is to sort of offset that larger size.
it is to offset the larger size, but I do believe if we're a position that we were able to hold on
Of
to,
course.
obviously we definitely benefit from it.
Of course.
Dr. Doug, and then Caroline.
Also, just as a point of reference, several of our youngsters who are on IEPs typically will be supported for mathematics and for English language arts, but not necessarily in the area of science and social studies. So a reading disability doesn't go away in a science or a social studies class, but they're not going to a small group instruction room, so thus they're put back into the mainstream. Thus, in turn, in general at the middle school, science and social studies class size are larger than the math and the English language arts.
Absolutely.
Caroline and Michelle.
And is the impact of the condition of the building making it more difficult to operate with larger size classrooms?
The physical condition of the
Yes.
building? I think we do a great job with what we have. Obviously, the condition of the building is not optimal, but I don't know that it affects student learning, no, because I do believe that our students and our staff are used to the building. To them, it's home. You know, we walk in there every day, look at the building with the empty ceilings, but to us, that's home, and I do feel that the students and staff feel the same way. So, to be honest, I think as an outsider coming in, when you look at the building, you say, oh my goodness, this is an old building. To us, that's our building.
No, I'm thinking about
The
the
noise.
acoustics and
The
the noise
acoustics. Oh, yeah,
factors.
absolutely.
I mean, I've been in some of those classrooms and you
Yes.
drop a pen and you can hear it. I don't know what it's gonna be like when you've got 29 kids in that classroom.
It's absolutely, it's very loud.
That was my question.
Yes, and if you're sitting, I can tell you that if you're on the 2nd floor and you're sitting above one of the science classes is below my office, I can hear. And the fact that I can hear everything clearly, yes. So I'm sure that the students, every sound you hear is bouncing off. So the more voices you have talking, which is the situation with the cafeteria, if I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Michelle and we're having a conversation, and Tony is having a conversation with Melissa, our voices are bouncing. So they're talking louder, and it's a
Right,
domino
ramps
effect.
up.
So, if I may quickly, when everyone here leaves the elementary school, after your tour, try to stop by the middle school around lunchtime,
No.
and you will truly understand, the situation in that building without the ceiling, without the tiles. You can't have a conversation.
No,
The noise it's like having a conversation with someone in a box. I mean, it is bad. I'm not exaggerating. I don't think Carolyn's exaggerating it at all. So,
No, bring your earplugs. We'd love to have you visit, but bring your earplugs.
Michelle,
Actually,
then
I had a
Melissa.
second question before Tony kind of cut me off before, but it's all right. The lunch monitors, you said that you're doing that this year already. So is that not being moved forward into the budget, and that's why you're requesting that?
It was
or-
not put in the budget last year. We took it from another area. It was not put into the budget from last year, so I would like to see it put into the budget for next year.
So what was it taken from?
I would have to go back and look, I'm not sure.
Originally, the thought was that Race to the Top funds were going to be used for it. However, that is not a usage that we could use. So it was this year some of the salary offset savings that we incurred.
Okay.
And it has made a large difference. It's much better to have on any given lunch period, we have between 195 and 200 children sitting in the lunchroom.
Sure.
So where it's separate and you have the two separate sections. To be able to have somebody in front directing the children, and then have somebody on one side, have somebody on the other side, it makes a difference. And as I said, Kelly and I try to get in there as much as we can, but oftentimes we're called
Yeah,
away.
I'm not questioning the need. I was just curious where you said you were doing it this year,
Yeah.
how that was being paid for versus why it's being asked as an extra.
It's
Is-
currently not in the budget.
Melissa?
I think this might be a question, I'm not sure, maybe for Dr. Dargan, but out of the technology teacher and the foreign language teacher, is there any possibility of utilizing some of our high school staff are they able to do that, to assist? Because we're looking at, for next year, it's specifically 8th grade, and I just don't know how, if there's any way of doing that.
Right, I think at this point in time, even some of our kids who want to participate in dual enrollment, because transportation is a problem and an issue, they're not able to. Can we look at something after school hours? Perhaps, but I think Carolyn is looking for something that's much more in line with, particularly the tech ed teacher, with the science curriculum frameworks. You really need to have someone, a core instructor who's certified in that content area.
And so let me be a little bit more clear. What I mean is, do we have a science technology teacher in the high school? And I know this is something that we've thought about it as we move forward with what are we going to do with the middle school, and if down the road, I'm not sure when the right time to insert this is, but if we are going to be moving middle school students, or if that's a possibility, if that indeed would also be a benefit, because then they would be able to pick up on different subjects that aren't offered in the middle school, such as a foreign language or or additional science or technology, because I would think that both our high school students and our middle school students could benefit from something like that.
So if the 8th grade was here, there's the possibility, working with Mrs. Tudelo, of looking at shared staff, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. Thank you for presenting your list of needs. A couple of questions I had before we get started, Ms. Potts. Your first year as the principal at the middle school, but you've been there for a few years.
2 years.
Two years. So you've got a background. This has come from your evaluation over multiple years, so thank you. I do want you to take that science test, because you mentioned in your office you can hear everything that goes on in the science room, so make sure you take that test.
No, I have to admit, even when I was an elementary teacher, I didn't teach science, I taught social studies, so I'm not sure how that would go.
I have a couple of questions in looking at your additional requests, and then I look back at some of the other schools. There's a few items that could come out of a capital budget, student desks, some of the technology even. I might suggest as we look forward at this draft, we may be able to shift that in line with the potential of additional funds to capital expense. And if that's a possibility, I would really like to take care of the concerns that we have at the middle school in terms of safe furniture, and that is step one. These additional areas, I assume that you also are in line with the commitment to halls of excellence and a level 1 school over there at the middle school, and this will help us get there.
Absolutely.
Great.
Of course.
Thank you.
Since Michael reminded me about the furniture too, that sounds like that's something that needs to be done sooner than later. Is there anything that we can do? I mean, I want to make sure that our students are safe, and if these desks are, ready to fall apart, I think we need to look at that in a more...
I can tell you it's an issue and a problem district-wide. And so Melissa probably can answer it best, but nobody that I've spoken to can recall the last time we've even bought a classroom set of furniture. So it is a problem district-wide, but some of the issues at the middle school are much more pronounced, particularly, we have little teeny tiny 5th graders, and we have 8th graders that, are double the size of 5th graders, and at times we can't even adjust the furniture anymore, but it is a problem district-wide. The problem, too, that we have, which is why you're having it in front of you this evening, is you remember how long our capital needs list, too, as well, that we need to start investing some of our monies in non-instructional supplies, such as furniture as well. thus that slide, 82% of our monies is spent in salaries. While that's really good, we're not top-heavy in teachers, we're not top-heavy in administrators. It's over the years we've spent less and less in our other resources, but it is an issue district-wide.
But, I'm sorry, just one more follow-up, but at bare minimum, those students should have desks. You know, they really shouldn't, I mean, so, I don't know how we do that, but.
Okay, anything else for Carol? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, the additional needs request put forth by the Westport Middle School was $253,700. And now, as you can see, there was a method and a purpose, and it was Mrs. Tudelo that drew the tall straw, if you will, and suggested that we start with the smallest of our population. Because what do we strive for? We strive to get every one of our kids to graduate, as well as we want to be not just a level 1 high school, but we want to be a level 1 district. So now Mrs. Tudelo will highlight things that are going on at the high school.
Thank you. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
So again, because it only happens once every 10 years, I do feel the need to go back and just reiterate our accreditation results, which were very positive. That took 3 to 5 years of work. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not magic, but it's an atmosphere and a culture that we have worked very hard on, and that's why I believe we have gotten the results that we have gotten along the way. So when we look at that accreditation report, and you'll see in the, you have seen in there were 56 commendations, 56 things that that committee of 16 outside evaluators felt that we did very, very well. There were 31 recommendations, and when you took out the doubles, there were actually only 24 because some of them were duplicates, and of those 24, 10 are directly related to teaching and learning at Westport High School, mostly around the school-wide rubrics, which is something new for NEASC, and that's something that we have already started to develop a plan to work on that. In addition to our NEASC report, we certainly celebrate our ranking as a level 1 school by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. But while I think we celebrate as a high school, I do have to recognize the work of my colleagues at the lower level, because that work is something that started at a very young age and continues. They make it here. So when you look at test scores from the elementary and middle school, to some people those might look concerning, those might look disappointing, but I think you have to look at the end result. And the end result is all of our students who stay with us until 12th grade do meet those requirements. They're proficient in math on the MCAS, they're proficient in ELA on the MCAS, and they pass the science test, they earn a high school diploma. And that's not something that's achieved in a very short time. That's something that happens over a period of years. So it is a team effort on everyone's part, starting at the Macumber and continuing until they leave us in grade 10. So when you look at my list, many of the things you see are related to AP, Advanced Placement. And the reason you see many things related to Advanced Placement, because Advanced Placement and the work that happens before it in pre-AP is all about laying the foundation. And we want to lay the foundation for all students to be successful for either college or career or whatever their post-secondary choice is. By training more teachers in AP at the middle and high school, you continue to set that expectation that all students can perform at very high levels. We believe that we can prepare every student for higher engagement by starting the development of those skills as early as possible, and that is looking back to those very early grades and those needs that they have identified already in terms of being able to prepare students for life after high school. So our commitment is for instruction that includes high-level questioning and enforces higher-order thinking skills, focusing on what students know, what they can do, and inclusive classroom and supports. We talked a little bit about some of the high-need students that we had. My experience here has told me that the best way to reach those students and move them to higher levels of achievement is by exposing them often and regularly to the regular ed curriculum. And that's what makes them successful on MCAS. That's what makes them more ready for college, the work of college and career. So when you look at class size, I know the high school was not included in the report. High school class size is very difficult to pin down. In grade 9 and 10, it's pretty stable because all students take the same core courses. But after grade 10, students start to spin off into their areas of interest. So you might see some numbers that people say look very small, and you might see some numbers that look large. And that has to do more with the student choice and what it is they'd like to be enrolled in and what their plans are for after college. It also gives us opportunities at the high school to identify needs and address them. So for instance, this year, for the first time, we were able to offer SAT prep class in both ELA and math. We were able to offer for the first time a college writing course, which was so popular in the first semester. We're going to run it again in second semester. And we were able to identify a need in grade 9. The math department and I looked at a group of students that we felt needed more of a challenge than the Intro to Algebra and the Algebra 1. Those students have committed to the high-level work of a double math this year. They're enrolled in Algebra 1 honors semester 1. They'll take geometry honors semester 2, so that by the end of grade 9, they are at the point they would have been had they taken algebra in 8th grade. We've had a very positive response to that type of challenge from both the students and the parents. They are all doing very well. The teacher who teaches that course is enrolled in a leadership course that I teach on Tuesday nights, and that's been the source of her action research project, and the results from those students have been incredible, and they are growing and developing math skills at an incredible rate. We were also pleased, Superintendent and I, earlier in the winter, when MIMSI, the Massachusetts Math Science Initiative, came knocking on our door and asking us to reapply again. And their primary reason for looking at Westport High School as a strong candidate for this year was because when they looked at our scores, they noticed that from the 11-12 school year to the 12-13 school year, they saw an increase of 17 students scoring a 4 or a 5. We went from 24 students to 41 students reaching that level. In that same year, overall, there was an increase of 31 students receiving a qualifying score, going from 40 students to 71 students. And students who receive those scores also makes them eligible to receive college credit. So that really is like banking credits ahead of time before they even hit the ground running at college. One of the things we'd like to do is to be able to continue to maintain those scores and improve them. And so my list includes materials that will be needed for AP Biology and AP US History. AP US History is not part of the MIMSI grant. It's been one of the longest running AP courses at Westport High School, and is one of the courses where we've seen some of the highest scores ever. 11-12 school year, we had 9 students enrolled in AP US History. 8 of those 9 students earned the highest possible score on the exam. They scored a 5. Last year, we had 12 students enrolled in AP US History, and 10 of the 12 scored 4 or 5 on the exam. They are changing the AP US History exam, and since they are changing the exam, there'll be a new textbook that goes along with it to mirror the exam. And so it would be to our benefit to purchase a new textbook in AP US History for those students. The same is true in AP Biology, changing the exam, and it would be to our benefit and to our students' benefit to have a copy of the new exam that will mirror the questions on the exam and the thinking that has to go along with it. When we met with MIMSI, they were also looking for a commitment from us. Would we explore the possibility of offering another advanced placement science course? Over the years, we've seen an increase in the interest of students in STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and so therefore we are looking to start an AP Physics course here. The College Board has split AP Physics into 1 and 2. AP Physics 1 would be a course that could be taken as early as grade 10, would be first opportunity for advanced students to take that course. They would only have to have completed geometry honors. So that's where most of our higher end grade 10 students would be, and they would concurrently enroll in Algebra 2, and taking that AP Physics in grade 10 would certainly give them an opportunity. They could take it at a later grade as well, but one of the things that MIMSI recommends, and I agree with, is that we want to try to spread the AP courses over 3 years instead of having students trying to take 3 or 4 in 1 year. Along the lines in mathematics, Our Algebra 1 and Geometry textbooks are not aligned with the Common Core, and those are your two gatekeeper courses in math. They lay the foundation for all the work that comes after that. So again, it would be to our students' advantage to have those textbooks aligned to the Common Core. We're looking for graphing calculators because those come in very handy, especially in the advanced math courses. Some of the cameras are for in the visual arts department. We have started a cinematography course that is very popular, but the cameras that we're using are quite old, so we would like to have some new cameras to go along with those. Digital cameras, right now students who do not have their own digital camera are excluded from taking photography, digital photography, and so that would open up opportunities for students who can't afford it. We continue to look to grow our music program, and so the music teacher is seeking to start piano, and the materials you see there would help us start and launch a piano lab. I just want to remind you again, and I believe it was put in your packet, look at our college's acceptances for the class of 2013, and we're already seeing some very positive acceptances and great results for the class of 2014, and that's where we want to be. That's where I want all the schools to be. I think it's important that we begin to focus on getting students ready for the challenges that we want them to take on in high school and beyond. Lastly, I would say that at the high school, we do function very much like a family. Every school, every classroom is like its own community. In the AP US History classes, you want to talk about passion and how they feel about it. I do have something that my AP US History students presented in their classroom today. They feel like they are such a family and a community of learners that that's their photo imposed on a quilt in AP History class.
Wow.
Sure. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you for opening up.
Because it's a Google Doc. Yeah. Any questions for me?
Sure. So it's a family. Who's the mother of the family?
I am. I'm matriarch of that family.
Absolutely. Thank you for what you do. It's when people ask me about the Westport Community Schools and come up with varying measures that they've heard through the grapevine, whether it be the middle school and the elementary school, and at some point decisions made on high school. My response is always that our high school is the biggest kept secret in Westport, and your presentation tonight explains that. Certainly in the short of the past 5 years, having initiated AP classes, and now we're looking for, oh wow, it's $12,000 for textbooks for AP students that have, the numbers are astounding. And I think not only should we make it clear to our middle schoolers here in Westport, but there's also quite a few students that are in the primary and middle schools, private schools out there that have decisions to make on which high school to go to. They should have Westport on their list as they're going forward.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we have many that transfer back into public schools from the parochial.
We actually do. We receive many students, not many, but several a year, usually typically after grade 10, where they've decided that they want something different, and they come back to us.
So the dinner that you're having is an open house. I'd hope that the whole community knows they're invited. If they're
Absolutely.
in a parochial school, it's a good time for them to visit and get an update. Even though I'm well aware of the progress on the AP, I'm astounded to learn of the actual numbers and the results of this commitment. And it can't go without being stated that that commitment was made not only by us as a school committee and as a community, but it's a strong group in town that has stood behind these type improvements. So thank you to the Educational Foundation as well. So I would urge us as a committee to figure out how to keep this progress going. I would mention to Ms. Tutelo, count on those textbooks for the AP classes. That's my input on that. So,
Thank you.
You know, I'm a fan, so you guys just continue to surprise us and continue to do a great job. And yes, like Mike says, we want, and you know, our job here is to make sure that Cheryl and the other administrators have the tools that they need, and keep in mind that we up here are not always the best judges of what those tools are. They're the ones in the trenches. It's them that we should be listening to.
I just wanted to take one more opportunity to congratulate you for the NEASC results. I'm pleased that we did this again today, and that you talked about it again today, because it really is truly, it was quite an effort put in by the staff and the students and the administration during that time frame when you were preparing for NEASC to come in. And I also would like to echo the little blanket there that you had from that AP class, that, you know, I had a daughter go through here who was given a wonderful foundation from K all the way through. And I have a 9th grader here who transitioned amazingly well and is having such a great time here. And that family that you're talking about, she tells me about in several of her classes. And she is one of the students taking on the challenge of the double math this year, and has had nothing but wonderful things to tell me about what's going on here in her classes with more than one of her teachers. So that's a true testament to your administration going into the classroom. And, you know, it really is a very well-kept secret, as Michael said, and I hope that more people do embrace the opportunity to learn about the school here and make an informed decision about whether to send their child here or not. That's all that we ask, is to make an informed decision, and if you have questions or concerns, to come to you and ask about it. And congratulations again on all those wonderful scores. And the graduation students, I know I'm hearing feedback from many of them, and they're doing wonderfully, and that they were very well prepared from here. So kudos again to you and to your staff.
Michelle, do you want to just point some of these out? I'm probably not the best judge on which ones I should...
The acceptances?
Yeah, if you would.
So I think when you look at the list, Boston College, Boston Conservatory, Brown University, these are acceptances, but many of our students did opt to go there. Emerson, Emmanuel, Mass College of Art, Museum School of Fine Arts, Northeastern University. We just had a freshman return from a first trimester in Greece from Westport, spent the first trimester in Greece, and is back in town. There's a video of his experience there posted on the high school website. Mom shared it with us. He's doing very well. Rhode Island School of Design, Sacred Heart University. We had one valedictorian is playing baseball at Sacred Heart this year. His brother, a former graduate, 2010, is published in Sports Illustrated this fall from the journalism work he did with Mr. Proudfoot here. Stonehill College, Temple University, Worcester Polytech. I mean, it's just very impressive when you think of what a small school this is, and to see names like that on the list of our college acceptances, I think is very low.
So the notion that our kids go to, you know, to 3 schools nearby is completely false.
Some of them do, and I think, you know, that's a family choice, and there are many reasons behind that choice. Let's not, but let's not
No, but
minimize
they don't get
the
accepted.
Adams Scholarship either, which is a huge boost for tuition at any of the state schools.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And again, Cheryl, you know, went off a few of this huge list. So these are acceptances. So that's also a credit to their hard work. Dr. Doggett, so on this, go ahead.
So just to wrap up, what the additional needs cost would be for the high school, that would be $51,440. So all total, as we heard from technology a couple of school committee meetings ago, we heard from Michelle Raposa about food service equipment. So all total, not encompassing the budget, the preliminary budget presented before you, but the additional needs not including the capital budget plan that was submitted, is $1,057,570. If we were to remove technology equipment and food service equipment and just base it on what you heard from the administrators before you this evening, about 60%, or a little over 600,000 of that, is directly back into the building schools. Not to say the other food service equipment certainly is too and whatnot, but looking at additional staffing, looking at textbooks, about 2/3 of that or so is directly going right to the schools. So again, additional needs is about $1,057,570 to put us towards more, getting towards our goal of being a level 1 district.
I know that Mr. Simonello did indicate that at least one of his budget items was as a result of a state mandate that this program needed to be implemented. Are none of the other requests partly due to the fact that we have state mandates
Yes.
that need to be implemented?
Good
Could you
point.
highlight some of those?
Some of the
Because-
other
yeah.
requests would be, I mean, you know, just even when we're looking at the cafeteria recess monitors, that would enable our administrators not to be in the lunchroom or outside doing recess duty, so that they can be in the classroom supervising and evaluating staff. Providing common planning time so that our teachers can have time to work on district-determined measures, units of study. Providing higher quality staff, like the tech ed teacher at the middle school. The science frameworks are so extensive that our youngsters don't have enough time covering the science/technology frameworks. Our teachers do a phenomenal job, but we need additional help and support in that area, which would address then becoming towards a level 1 school, preparing them for PARC as well as the MCAS science exams as well. So many of the things that were presented before you, even curriculum, the Common Core. You know, we were able to fund 2 years ago at the elementary level mathematics program, and this year the Go Math program at the middle school. But the high school now still needs to be aligned to the Common Core, which came out in 2011. So many of the things that you heard before you this evening are to get us to fulfill those unfunded mandates. So just to wrap up now, next steps, I'll turn that over to Mr. Dupuy to talk about what our next steps here in Westport would be, and then ultimately in our budget process.
Mark, if you would.
Just in general, as we did discuss unfunded mandates, it certainly by its term sounds like it's an excruciating leverage the state puts on us. And I just want to state that I believe in many cases we receive good direction from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Although their prescription for success in many times does not come with funds, and it's not a suggestion, it's a mandate, but it's often a very good way to continue our success. So, you know, these areas that they've identified statewide for improvements, we've seen over the years, as we've incorporated them into our own budget, using our own funds, that it does result in the state of Massachusetts being one of the top in the world in terms of educational attainment. So we wrestle with it every year, but I just wanted to add my input on that issue that is often cumbersome, but we appreciate the direction from the leaders in the state. So. Mark, thank you.
Thank you. The next steps, clearly this is a process. This is the first step in that process. It will involve a cooperative working relationship with the town fathers and the finance committee and the various boards. You've heard a lot of the needs that were put forward today. Over $1 million of those needs are not included in the base budget. So we've talked a lot about this. We've met a number of times as an administrative team. We met individually with all the principals to review their budget and their requests. What we're looking for at this point is some direction, not necessarily cast in concrete, what this committee would desire us to do with regards to the additional needs you heard. Those are not included, as I'm repeating myself, in the base budget, but we would seek some direction on should those be included, should some of them be included, should none of them be included, and where we want to go forward with that so that we can put that together and then continue the process of meeting with the finance committee and selectmen and town manager.
Caroline?
What I'd like to see is some analysis of where the shortfall would come from between our level funded budget with our contractual increases versus the 100 and whatever that is supposedly on the table. That 300 and something $1,000 gap. If we don't get those additional funds, there's clearly cutting that's going to be done. And so I'd like to see what the impact of losing those monies would be.
The 330,000.
Correct. As a start. And to see what, if other shifting of other things needs to be done. With regard to the additional needs, I agree with a lot of them. I mean, I do have children in the middle school, and there are kids that I know that are taking 3 gyms, not 3 choruses, 3 gyms. They're in gym 3 times a week because there's no other blocks to put them in. There needs to be more diversity in that building. It was taken away some years back. It really needs to be put back into that building. The high school budget, they're not asking for additional funding for personnel. It's really to supplement and embellish the programs that are existing and also to bring our textbooks to modern day textbooks versus God knows how old. How old are those textbooks they're using?
I would say most of them are around the 5 to 7 year mark.
Which
But they changed the test.
Right, no, I know that. But we know that textbooks, it's an industry, but all the testing has changed. So I'd like to see a prioritization of what the buildings think are the most important needs, even though I recognize that all of them are probably important to them. And that's the direction I'd like to go.
Okay, all right, to touch on that, I mean, just as far as the difference there between the
330,000.
330 between the 0.95 and the 3%, that is a level service budget.
No, it's level funded.
Level funded. Again, considering that 82% of our budget is salaries, if you take 82% of the 330, and we're talking 5 staff, 6, that's a cut. It's big. To take that completely out of expenses would be, I imagine, excruciatingly difficult. So a shortfall of 330 would be staff cuts, and so we've all sat here for the last hour and a half or so and heard it from our administrators, what it is they need. But I think they need it all. I think, again, like Mark said, I think it's our turn. It's the committee's decision now to take in that list and, whether we want to accept it all in part, or do we want to go through it item by item, which I think, again, I think we need to leave that kind of stuff up to the professionals. I would entertain a motion maybe with a number tonight to give the administration at least a direction and give the town, everyone, a direction, at least an idea of what the school committee's going. Mike?
Actually, I'm not ready to make a motion. I want to have a little bit of input, which is what I understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we may want to end up with a number. We have before us an operating budget with an increase of 3%. We look at the trend over the past 5 years, it's below average in terms of increases from year to year, and it's a responsible level service budget, without question. It takes into consideration many factors, including enrollment, including a shift in programs and priorities, and so thank you for putting that before us. The first question I have, and so this is some direction, as you said, you'll be meeting with the town administration as well, and what I asked the night that we unveiled our town budget as a whole was, what was the what consideration, what was the estimated amount of state aid in the town budget for schools? And I have yet to receive an answer. Without that number, the 330 difference means absolutely nothing, because we don't know if the total estimated general funds, the total estimate from state aid, what portion of that was, did they consider that we will be level funded for Chapter 70 funding? I haven't received an answer to that yet.
And if we just go to the last slide that's projected above you right now, our recommendation for next steps is we're going to continue to do an ongoing review of the budget. That's at the administrative level, where we start to analyze and prioritize some of these things. We'll bring it back to the budget subcommittee too as well. And then we also have to keep our eye on revenue projections. We have to look at when the governor comes out later this month with his budget, as well as the Senate budget. As time goes on, we'll have more information at the state level. We also need to set our public hearing date in order to collect input from our constituents too as well. We need to at least have a 7-day notice in order to be able to publicize and advertise that as well. So as we go through this process over the course of the next couple of months, we hope to be able to have more known numbers, more information to be able to bring back to you as well. By then we will have gone out to bid for transportation, so hopefully we'll be able to have a more concise number on what transportation is going to cost us next school year as well.
And that kind of points to my item there is going to be covered in further discussion. So with that in mind, I would like to make a motion that we approve the budget before us with the condition that budget before us is the $480,758 increase. So the motion would be to approve the budget of $16,356,543 as an operating budget. In addition, a capital budget of $120,000.
So you added, that's your motion?
My motion is part A and B.
So you added the 120 to the 486.
For capital.
You happy to explain it?
Yeah, for discussion, please.
So again, my motion is to approve the operating budget before us, which represents a 3% increase. It also is asking that we immediately highlight the $120,000 worth of capital investments that are on this list, because all indications are there will be a capital effort this year. And so that would get us started down that road. And that would be based on this year's budget, not any.
I'm sorry. Carolina first, I'm sorry.
So I would have great difficulty approving a budget after just watching the PowerPoint without going more in depth into the multiple page budget book that I've looked at several times and have questions about certain things. I still have questions about the administrative structure. Are we going to have a business manager? Is that person going to be part-time or full-time? That's part of this budget, but I haven't had an opportunity to discuss and see exactly where it is in here. I have loads of questions to ask before I'm ready to vote to approve any budget. This is the first real presentation of the FY15 budget we've had. And in the past, we've had version 1, and then we've gone back and given some direction, then version 2, and some more direction in version 3. And it's been this push-pull of trying to winnow down what we really believe where we want the district to head based upon the monies that are available or that we're seeking. I think it's premature right now to vote on a budget that we've been shown a power slide of.
And actually, we're not asking for a vote to accept the budget this evening. Actually, we were voting, asking you to vote to give us some kind of guidance and direction on how to refine this budget, how to bring more information back to you, and in particular, if we could set the public hearing date so that we are able to publish our FY15 budget, get it out to the library, get it out to town hall, get a copy in each of our schools so that the community have an opportunity to take a look at that too as well.
So, and we don't need to have the number for the hearing that comes after.
Just a couple of questions. We can ask questions about the budget now. This is the time to ask those questions that the member's referring to. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's one. And then two, one of the things that I'd like to see moving forward.
What's your point of
Should
information?
we dispose of the motion first before we go into?
Yeah, we do have a motion on the table.
Well, this was about.
We're getting off, but, all right, to the motion. So Mike made a motion to accept the,
Which I will withdraw.
480, but you want to withdraw that motion?
Seems to be the.
That's fine.
Some of us need more time to look at it, which is fine.
Okay. All right, that simplifies things. Thanks, Mike. Melissa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So some of the questions I had were in regards to the additional requests from the principals. I know they're not included in that original amount, but they seem as though we really need to fund some of them if possible. So how do we go about including them or creating a priority list altogether, or, and in addition to that? And I know we need to figure out a way to whittle it down almost, but some of those specifically looking at our going towards or striving towards that level 1 district that we want to be, it would almost seem imperative that some of those expenses need to be included in there. And maybe there's some that you know off the top of your head that you, not now, but as you start to go through it, thinking about the science teacher, we need to somehow get that science in there or do something at the middle school. So how do we go about doing that?
Well, I mean, as far as the priority list, I think there was a sense of priorities from the administrators, on their individual list. So, as far as each school, I believe we have that. Yes, then it's up to the superintendent and the rest and the administrative team to decide if any additional monies, if we get any of that stuff, then exactly where they will go. That'll be, up to them to decide. But I don't know. I think we could. I don't think the priorities are going to change from this week to next week. I mean, sure, there are questions. I mean, to the extent that those questions can be asked today, absolutely, I would urge all the members to ask those questions today, because it would speed up the process. You know, too often these things go back and forth, and they come back almost like completely different, and it's like every meeting we start over again. I don't want to do that. I know that. I mean, I want to simplify. I want to narrow things down and try to get to a number as soon as possible. Michael?
That was my sense, Mr. Chairman, in terms of a starting point with the discussion we had about approving a budget. Is a second phase of my approach to this needs list, and that enters into the conversation regarding an override. I looked through the needs list. I came up with the $120,000 of absolute, which should come out of this year's funds, which indications are they're available, and then the balance, which is close to $1 million, if I calculated correctly. I believe it's a little bit beyond. We would engage in conversation of an override. I would like to separate the two. I want us to have our operating budget and our capital needs budget for FY15 in place regardless of the override question. We have, I hope my introduction of the concept of another override question this year is no surprise. It's something that has been introduced by the Board of Selectmen at their meeting. I'm not sure who introduced it. But so the override would start to address the additional needs above and beyond the 120. So as I see, we have two decisions. One is absolute need based on available revenue. That figure I see is 600,000. And then above and beyond is engaging in a priority list for override items. Now that's my thought, that's my approach. I see we have the business manager in place for FY15. I don't anticipate, so they might, I'm assuming that there's no major administrative changes going forward next year in terms of structure. That's how I interpreted this. And the override is going to take care of the commitment to level 1 schools, and that's what we have here in terms of needs.
Carolina?
I mean, I'm looking at page 6, and I apologize because is our budget actually online where people?
No, not yet, because tonight was just the preliminary budget, and so that would be the agenda for the next meeting. But we have books available now for each of the principals, for the schools, selectmen, town administrator, for the library, and start to disseminate them. So it can be.
Okay. I didn't want to get into the line-by-line discussions because I didn't think it was fair that it wasn't available for people to look online to see and whatever. But just one point. On page 6, which is the school committee superintendent and business office's budget, superintendent's office, there's a superintendent listed for $77,000, and then there's an assistant superintendent listed for $103, for a total budget of the superintendent's office of $182, which includes $2,500 for benefits. So I'm confused because, you know, we have an acting superintendent, we haven't made a decision with regards to whether we're going on a surge, and can I finish?
What's your point?
We have an interim superintendent.
An interim superintendent. And I don't, is the assistant Dr. Dargan salary versus $77,000 for a new, I'm
Point of
confused at those
information,
numbers.
The budget does not include any names.
Let me see if I can shed some light.
The numbers don't make sense to me is what I'm trying to say.
The superintendent currently is under contract till the end of this year, so nothing, so.
This is next year's budget proposed.
No, I know that, so we don't know how that's gonna look.
So what's proposed here in the budget right now is the structure that was currently known with the superintendent and an assistant superintendent. So the dollar amounts there, again, as we said, everybody's salary was rolled over. For the teachers, steps and lanes were included. But it was including current known salaries until the school committee makes a determination on what the administrative structure will be. We took a superintendent's salary and an assistant superintendent's salary, and that's what's in this budget.
Michael?
So as it's also been done in years past, and we combined two of the positions under one heading. We had a superintendent-business manager. So if I understand, and this is how I interpreted the FY15 budget, we have a superintendent position which this reflects that it's going to either be a combined superintendent business manager or possibly a superintendent curriculum director, assistant superintendent, or combined with one of the other lines, because sure, I agree, we are not going to be able to hire a superintendent at the budgeted amount, so we again look at multitasking as we've done for many years.
Yes.
If I can just clarify, there's money in the budget for 2 administrative positions, which however you structure those is clearly up to the committee.
Which would be the committee's decision whether we have a super and an assistant, or a super and a business manager, or whatever the committee's pleasure is. All right. I hope the members have gone through this. I've gone through this. I came in. I spent 2-3 hours with Mark today and Dr. Dargan. I'm all marked up. I have many questions, a lot of answers. I certainly would encourage the members to do the same. I don't know, Dr. Dargan, what do you need today from us? Do you need the hearing dates? Do you want to set that today?
I'd love if you'd be able to at least set the hearing date, just so that we could, start to publicize and advertise that. My suggestion would be, we have a school committee meeting 2 weeks from tonight, January 22nd. The regulation says we need to have a public hearing. It doesn't say when in the process. And so I think by giving the community, the public, an opportunity to come forward might help give the school committee some guidance and some direction too as well. Also, we do have, some guidance and direction looking at the analysis. If we had to have a budget shortfall of $330,000, what would that look like? So I'll go back and work with the administrative team in looking at where we could perhaps make some cuts in the current budget. And then we'll go back and we'll take a look at, you heard from each school individually, each individual, and now we'll come back together with a district priority list, and then you'll have an opportunity to be able to tier that or see at what cost, and to be able to give us then some more guidance and direction there.
So, at our next meeting, if we use that next meeting as for the hearing, would we be I guess before the hearing part of the meeting, all this new information would have to come before the school committee first? Or do you want to do that at the next meeting and do the hearing the following?
That's your call, but we would be prepared at the next meeting to have that information for you.
I don't know who's next. Go ahead.
You can go. I've spoken already, so I'll go next.
I was just going to suggest maybe if we wanted to have a budget subcommittee and then before, in between the two, and then try to schedule it for the 22nd, just so we can start to get the ball rolling quicker. I don't know.
Schedule the hearing?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, my concern is that we have time before the hearing, that the members have time before the hearing to get the information and get the questions answered.
And the other thing is that, we're starting with a static budget of things that are in place and are there. And is there anything that we can do to that budget to potentially implement some of these new things by substituting out, where that would be the building administrator. And I know they don't want to lose anything. I get that, and nobody wants to lose anything, and we all have extra needs. But in order for us to be able to assess where we may want to give direction, what can they bring to the table that maybe can be swapped out for the foreign language teacher and the instructional technology person if we don't get extra or don't have the availability of extra money? And, and I personally am skeptical about doing an override this year. I think we have to live with whatever numbers we end up with and move forward. I would love to be able to get an override in this town. I'm just very skeptical about it.
Thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate how I had opened and made a preface that I do not see, and I really wish we would stop referring to a shortfall of $330,000. It's not there. There's going to be an increase in Chapter 70 state aid this year, by all indications from the state government. We'll soon find out. So if the budget that was put together by the municipal side made a presumption of level funded state aid for schools, that's going to reduce the 330. I also have some questions regarding the ratios and things that have gone on, but I would urge that be the direction we go for the operating budget. The $480,000 is what we need to maintain the level of service we're at, which is a level 2 district. I'm not interested in becoming a level 3 district. This has come from our administration. If our next scheduled meeting is going to start with this same budget, which it should. We've talked about historical drafts of budgets. I don't want to go down that route. This I would like to endorse as an operating budget, if not tonight, the next meeting, but we need to look at these needs. This is the increase of a 3% is a bare bones to maintain our existing level of services. That's what's been presented. I don't see any gaps in it. I see we need to have further discussion on revenue streams, and that's left up to the administration and the budget subcommittee. So although the motion has been withdrawn, I'm not sure what the chairman's looking for in terms of next steps. I don't want to open up our next meeting with a different budget. This is the bare bones budget that we look at. And
no, thanks, Mike. I mean, I could certainly throw out a number, but we could have the discussions. We could hear from those and where the cuts would be or where they wouldn't be, what the priorities. It's going to come to a number greater than 480 for sure. Just the sooner this committee could settle on a number, the sooner, obviously, the administration could get that together. The town would have an idea or would know exactly what it is we need or don't need, and then they would need to do what they need to do on their end. But the sooner we do that, the better. I mean, if we can't do it tonight, then I would certainly, at the end of the next meeting or at our next meeting, we got 2 weeks or however many weeks, and you guys need to come in. You need to ask the questions. You need to look over the budget. I think there has been some rearranging. I think there are some things in here that we've moved and pulled out and have gotten rid of, and this, that, and the other. So, some of that is happening. Again, the sooner we need to decide. Pushing it off, again, sometimes just makes things worse. Melissa?
I think it would be beneficial if we decided on one day to come in as a committee. That's why I suggested a budget subcommittee, because I mean, Dr. Dargan.
It is tasking.
Has a number of things to have all 5 of us come in at different times to ask the same questions. I think it would be inefficient. I think it would be best for us to come in at the same time so that we could all hear the same thing and have it be a budget subcommittee so that, you know, if other people want to come, obviously, open meeting.
I just want to input on that and also on the budget, on the hearing as well. My only concern with doing that, and I agree, we all need to be in the one spot, is I always am concerned when we start talking about very important things at a different time than what our typical time frame would be that people might tune into us. And then calling it a budget subcommittee when it really isn't at that point. It's a school committee meeting. Unless I just sat there and listened and really didn't give a lot of input, because then I just feel it changes the dynamics of what that meeting is meant to be. But I do think it's a good idea. I just don't know that doing it on another time, day, or whatever. And I guess it goes back to the public hearing portion. Looking at calendar-wise, we kind of run into this every year where we end up meeting the 2nd and 4th. It pushes us back into February when we start talking about it here. Now we're looking literally at the middle of February. If we were to not do the public hearing at the next meeting, we're now talking sometime around Valentine's Day to do the public hearing, and that only gives us those 2 meetings to kind of come up with a number and decide where we want to be. I mean, I'd like to get the public hearing done, and I'd like to get input from people too to know what they're thinking and what they feel is happening with our schools, whether they feel that we're spending the money right, or whatever information that they're getting out there about what we're doing and how we're doing it. I would not have a problem doing it at our next meeting. It is going to make for a long meeting. I do realize that. But I also want time to get some feedback, because some of the things that Carolina mentioned are actually important to me too, because I'm kind of curious to see how our administrators, and I have caution to it too, how our administrators can be any more, where they can cut more. I don't know that there's much more to cut to add some of these things that they're looking for. Because we've been asking them to do it year after year after year now. Go back to the well and see where you can pull and get rid of things that are already in there that are important as well. So what are we cutting that's important to add something else that's important? I kind of want to see what they would do. But in addition to that, as a school, we're required by state law to improve every year. So, you know, we also need to look at some of these things, and we need to make sure that we stay where we're at and move forward and give our students the best opportunity. And every year, this is so disheartening to take a look at this budget and take a look at the wants and the needs of the teachers and the students, and the safety issues, the desks and the capital needs, and then to not have the money to do it and to try to figure out where it's going to come from. So, I mean, I would like to see maybe our public hearing at our next meeting. But I would like to get input first with some of that stuff.
I agree. Do we need a motion? We don't need a motion for the public hearing.
You need 7 days for that, right?
We need to, yes.
Because it's got to go in the paper.
Correct.
Make a motion.
Well, let me finish. But I would suggest, let's schedule the public hearing for our next meeting. And I mean, we've been through those before. I mean, hopefully, you know, a lot of people show up and we have a lot of input. And then we use the balance of that meeting to do what it is that we're asking for here, to have some answers. In the meantime, we all do our homework, and maybe we get lucky and at the next meeting we settle on a number. If not, then we'll have to go another week, another 2 weeks. Mike?
I'd like to make a motion to refer the final draft of the proposed FY15 educational budget we have before us to the Budget Subcommittee.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion. Tony?
Carolyn?
Again, as I open the discussion with the motion I put forward, we've talked about varying drafts we're not going to have varying drafts. This is our FY15 proposed operating budget. The Budget Subcommittee has met 3 times in preparation for this. It would make sense for the Budget Committee to review this budget, so therefore it should be referred to them. That is a public meeting, which will be scheduled next week. So that's
And
what
then
the
you guys,
motion
and
is
then
calling
and then you
for.
guys could report to the full committee on the following week.
And within that discussion, we'll be also looking at our capital needs budget for FY15, which will be above and beyond this operating budget, because this long list of capital needs is not in the operating budget.
Any further discussion?
Tony?
Carolyn?
Well, to refer the budget for a final budget approval to 2 people of the 5-member school committee, I think is not legally appropriate.
Point of
5 of us
information.
have to, can
Hold
I
on.
finish?
Point of
I didn't
information.
interrupt
Point
you.
of
Can I
information.
Point of
finish?
information.
The
no, go
motion
ahead.
does not say for final approval.
Yeah.
That's
It
not
say
what the
final
motion said.
budget presentation. It
This
said
is
the
the
word
fi-
final.
All right, all right.
Right, this is the final budget. We want to look at it. If you would listen to the motion, again, if we need to read.
Okay,
cite
Carolyn's
it.
got the floor, all right. I
The
get
word
it.
final to me means final. It doesn't mean proposed.
This
The-
is
You wanna
the
say the
final
word
budget-
proposed, it's
budget-
different.
The budget subcommittee simply reports to the full committee. They don't decide on the budget. We all
The
know.
motion was not to approve anything. It was to refer this budget to.
Any more discussion on the motion?
I didn't finish, Tony. He keeps interrupting me.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I think the full committee needs to have robust discussion with regard to the entire budget. I don't think that it is fair. I don't think I was elected to this seat to defer for 2 people of the committee to go through and ask all the questions and do all the whatevers, and then come here and it's sort of like, oh, for me to redo all the questions and re-ask, I don't think it's fair to them. I think the full committee needs to do robust analysis and inquisition with regards to what is being presented to us for us as a full committee to decide whether we're going to move forward and approve it or not. I do not think that this budget that's been presented to me, I have lots and lots of questions on it. I don't think this is the time to do it right now.
Okay, Melissa first.
So, if it's, please correct me if I'm wrong, that any member can attend the budget subcommittee and ask questions, member of this committee as well as a member of our community. And I would encourage anybody who's interested to attend that meeting and ask those questions. It's also my understanding that we create these subcommittees, such as the policy subcommittee, that goes and does robust analysis of our policies and then brings it back to the full committee with recommendations. And then as a full committee, those questions are addressed. And in addition to that, if a member had a policy in which they wanted to have more discussion about, then they could attend the policy subcommittee, which I have done in the past as well. So I would just like to, again, say that I'm in favor of this motion because I believe that it'll start to move us forward, and that it's an open meeting that anybody is able to attend and ask questions.
Anything else, Michelle?
My only comment was going to be, would it maybe be possible that the meeting of the budget subcommittee happen next Wednesday at our regular time, and we just maybe post it as a special school committee meeting, or an addendum to it, or a budget subcommittee with a school committee meeting to follow?
That's a
Just
possibility.
throwing it out there.
I certainly am willing to amend the motion to date certain next Wednesday for these.
And I know we do
For the
have,
budget subcommittee
I know there's a
meeting.
dinner, so we can do it after the dinner. I believe that's next
All right.
Wednesday, right?
So, all right, so,
have a
okay,
cable
so
committee meeting
if you want to just clarify
just
the
throwing it
motion,
out
now,
there.
like, you want to change it?
I-
Is there a
Again,
motion to have
the motion
a
is to
meeting
re-
next Wednesday?
to-
Maybe a special school committee meeting next Wednesday?
The motion is to refer this document to be discussed by the budget subcommittee, not to be approved, but to be discussed. And that will be time certain next Wednesday at
6 o'clock.
3 o'clock, 4,
What time?
It would have to be 5 o'clock.
at 5 o'clock.
The dinner is over, the high school dinner at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
But Dr. Dargan and I have a cable committee meeting at 6 o'clock.
It's,
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I was just throwing it out there,
it's,
that's all.
yeah, well,
Let's try it. All in favor? All in
Whoa,
favor?
wait, what are we voting on?
We're voting
I'm
on having a
confused.
meeting on Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
no, we're not voting to have a special school committee
No,
meeting.
a meeting, I said, a subcommittee
Budget
meeting.
subcommittee meeting, because we have a document in front of us. I don't want to have 4 more versions before we get
Neither do I.
to the approval. This is a very nice,
I know what I was voting for, Michael.
okay.
All in
I
favor?
didn't, I still
Okay.
don't.
A subcommittee
please
meeting at
clarify.
5 o'clock on Wednesday.
Why do we need to vote on this? I'm
We
just
don't.
curious.
We don't, Michael certainly can post it. We
I
don't need to vote.
believe the motion was to refer this document to the budget subcommittee.
Can I ask a
It's
question?
Yes.
If you had a meeting at 5 o'clock, does that affect your plans at 5 o'clock for,
No, because I can go to the dinner at 4:30, this at 5 o'clock, and then the cable meeting at 6 o'clock.
Tony, quick question. Dr. Doggin, how long is the cable committee? Is it usually more than an hour?
It was a couple of hours the last time. I anticipate it'll be probably a couple of hours, best guess.
Mike,
Okay.
post a meeting and we'll figure it out.
So we don't-
We don't need a motion to post a meeting. I'll refer this. Okay, you want to withdraw that motion? We had a motion and a second.
Sure.
Withdrawn. All right, guys. Anyway, so I'm not throwing anyone out of here, but certainly we are now moving on. And if you do start leaving, I do want to thank all of you for coming. It's very important to us that you're here. It's important to the community that you're here. You know, please go home and just and think about all these things. Yeah, if the committee doesn't mind, if any, I'll take public comments and statements from anyone now, if anyone wishes. Tony?
I'm not speaking for the Board of Selectmen. I'm speaking as a member of the community because we're not in session tonight, but I thought it was a very well done presentation. I do have a lot of questions as a member of the Board of Selectmen and also as an individual. And I look forward to having those, having an opportunity to have those aired out at some point. But I want to commend the school committee and the superintendent and the business manager. I think it's very clear for the most part. I'm a little, I guess on high school, I'm still not sure what the enrollment is and the numbers, but I'm sure that'll be clarified at a later date. But I guess the only concern as an individual I would have is if we are going to address it all this year in a projection for the next 4 or 5 years in terms of building needs, because that could factor into a budget that could help both the school and the town and maybe a solution. I feel personally about that I'm not speaking for the Board of Selectmen on that. We haven't really addressed that as a board yet, but that's the only other input that I'd like to add. Thank you.
Thanks, and some of those conversations have started. Thanks. All right, okay, all right, so let's move on to, anybody, anyone else? All right, let's move on to routine matters, approval of the minutes of Wednesday, December 4th, 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is this the meeting I walked in late?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Is this the meeting I walked in late? No.
No, that would have been
Aye.
the next one, right?
Aye.
I don't know. It would have been noted.
I thought it was this one. I may be wrong.
It was last week,
Oh, okay.
last.
Okay.
All right, let's, approval of minutes of Wednesday, December 18th, 2013.
Says you arrived at 6:05.
Okay.
December 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion?
Motion to accept?
Second?
I did miss the first
Okay.
portion of it, but I'll second it.
So we-
Unless someone else-
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 School
Aye,
bus-
after 6 o'clock. After I walked in, I can't speak to the beginning of the meeting.
School business, anything?
Just at some point in time, we probably want to put a conversation before the school committee on the SOIs. Because we have a February 11th deadline for any accelerated projects, and then we have an April deadline for any core program. And we would need some time if we're going to get to the selectmen to get the signatures, et cetera, so we need to have that on the agenda soon.
Yeah.
We need to do that on the 22nd because
Yes, at least by the 22nd.
otherwise, in case the committee decided to do something for the first round.
And it has to get to the selectmen too, before the due date.
So it has to go to
Has
the
go
next
the
meeting.
selectmen. So,
Man, we ought to
and
pack
maybe
bags
like
for that
two
meeting.
options.
Maybe a meeting.
Two options, not just, two options. Se- Like, no, this would be the second one. We'd have the latter date, the February 14th.
No.
If you want it
You're
to be
right.
part of the accelerated program, which are the windows, roofs,
Right.
or boilers, we have to have a decision made with signatures by February.
As a separate SOI, as
As a
opposed to a
separate
build?
SOI,
Oh, okay,
yes.
all right.
My point was just that if the committee decided they wanted to go after that one, it would
Yes.
need to be decided
Yes.
at the next
Yes.
meeting.
So
Yes.
I would agree with everything that was said, so at the next meeting, I would like
At least talk about
Mr.
it.
Duart's suggestions for boilers, including at the MAC school, to put together an SOI for his recommendations for the accelerated projects.
And we could send it out prior, obviously.
I hope he stays
Yeah.
away from windows or
Yeah.
any,
Maybe just a little asbestos would be okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The SOIs? I don't know if there's an impact if you submit
I was thinking the same
10
thing.
proposals versus 3. So I'd like to know if there is an impact if you submit 10 proposals as opposed to 3. Because
I'm
I believe
sure.
we're probably going to want to submit similar things to the time we did last year.
All right, anything, yeah, correspondence. Well, any,
I have
school
some
committee
other
business?
business to
School
pass.
committee business?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to put on, I don't know if we can do it this next time or the time after, but corresponding with our school, and the school committee corresponding with our administrators and administrative team and how that is currently working or not working.
I mean, roles and responsibilities?
Well, kind of like roles and responsibilities, but I'd like to just discuss that because one of the things that is put on our administration, as we've seen through this budget hearing, is that they've got a lot on their plates. And how is it that we, as a whole body, are communicating to our administration? I mean, are we all going, I know it's, are we all going in there at separate times? And how are we being professional when we go in or not professional? And I just think that that needs to be ensured that it's efficient, effective, and professional at all times. So I just like to go over that. And then in addition to that, also how we're corresponding with our legal, because it's my understanding that we're supposed to be going directly through the chair, and there was a, in the warrant, it says who's going, and it's not just the chair that's corresponding with
If members
legal,
aren't aware,
so-
we should be going at least, at the minimum, through the chair, yes. And sometimes the chair says, go ahead and call.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask for a clarification?
Yes.
Because when I'm in negotiations, I don't go through you because you're not part of the negotiations.
Oh, no, if it's a legal question in reference to a negotiating team, then, yeah, obviously. But you have a separate lawyer for that.
It's the same firm,
It's the same.
Same firm, yeah, but
but
yes.
it's the same firm.
it would make sense to follow the same procedures. Each subcommittee, i.e. negotiating subcommittee, should in fact have a chair that should be the one responsible if it's for communication with the law firm.
Just a reminder, I mean, law firms will charge you today to answer an email. I mean, it's, maybe in days past, you could shoot off an email to an attorney, hey, Joe, you know, what do you think about X, or something, and then, you know, yes, or, today, those emails are showing up on the invoices, believe me.
So, just to clarify, I would like that on the agenda, because I know we can't really discuss it now since it's not part
Yeah,
of our agenda.
sure.
So I'd
We
like
could,
that added, because I would like to clarify that, because I thought we could add that.
We have the policy. Rules, yeah, it's, yeah, okay. All
I
right.
want to add something to the new agenda, too.
Yes.
And I had requested that this be added to this
Yes.
agenda via email, which I sent to you and to Dr. Dargan. I had asked for a backup on all of the information with regard to the brains, what is this thing called? The MMS system. When it's supposedly, because the thing, when it was presented to us, we're looking to replace. You know, I've since learned supposedly that it broke down. So when were we informed that it broke down? When did the search for this new MMS program go? The funding for the program was apparently raised to the top monies, which according to the slide were $86,000. Where was that money originally budgeted for? Because last year it was budgeted to do something. It wasn't budgeted for this. I'd like to know where it was. I asked all these questions. I sent out an email. I never got a response, and I'd like that on the agenda. I was asked to sign a warrant with this item on it. I didn't sign it. I would like more explanation with regards to the historical process of how the decision to purchase the software that a PO was issued on was made, with all the email backup and all that other stuff. And I'd like it for the next meeting.
Point of information, that request was answered at the last meeting.
No, it
that
wasn't.
It would not be scheduled for this meeting.
Yeah, we did say that.
It's
Go ahead.
clear in the minutes, and it's on the next agenda, I think.
In addition to that, it's my understanding that this is on a grant, and
But
that
we're not
is-
discussing it.
Okay. So then I don't know if it's a point of information where we're going to require our superintendent to provide us with information that.
Because I, as a school
Well,
committee member,
we
have a right to ask for the
We have a member
information.
asking for the information, so we'll get her the information.
I have a right to ask for the information.
Okay. All right, anything else? Comments and statements from any public still here? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.